The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
You know, I gotta say this, and I'm all about the holidays. I'm all about celebrating, you know, Kwanzaa, Martin Luther King Day, all that stuff. I like celebrating holidays. But, I mean, David Hero,
Yes.
You brought all these gimmicks here to this table. Do you think we're at an indie show trying to sell this stuff? Why was all this necessary?
Because Paul
this is a professional environment. We're on broadcast television, and you're trying to taint our reputation.
Listen, I am just the messenger from the corporate offices. They wanted themed St. Patrick's Day. Do you think
I don't answer to corporate.
Do you think I enjoyed wearing that bearded gimmick?
You know
thing?
what? Weirdly enough, I think you did.
I'm not a leprechaun. I'm
Clearly.
a Hall of Famer.
Damian Nelson and David Hero here with you for the PWR 5 and a special edition this week as we look back at the 10 best performers of WrestleMania in Wrestlemania history. And let's go down that list again just so everyone viewing us here at PWRshow.com.
And hold on. It's EPO, entertainment purposes only. We're not slighting anybody. We only had 10 slots to fill.
Which is why we're doing this honorable mentions, because several people deserve mentions, of course, because they fell outside of those 10 slots. But let's go over the name of the 10. Coming in at number 10, working our way down to number 1, Chris Jericho. John Cena at number 9. Triple H at number 8. Bret Hart at number 7. Randy the Macho Man Savage at number 6. Rock, 5. Stone Cold Steve Austin at number 4, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels at number 3, and coming in at number 2, Hulk Hogan, followed by The Undertaker, who was deemed the top performer in WrestleMania history. But there's many more to mention because you got to say a lot of these men couldn't have been in the spots that they are in without the people who they did work with. Absolutely. And one of those people was Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant may not have had a whole lot of matches at WrestleMania, but the ones he was a part in were huge.
He had the match at WrestleMania.
Well, he did. I mean, WrestleMania 1, the Body Slam Challenge match with Big John Studd.
$15,000.
WrestleMania 2.
Get over here.
He wins the Battle Royal.
Yep.
WrestleMania 3, the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan. WrestleMania 4, Hulk Hogan again.
Stuff all over me.
WrestleMania 5, I believe he was in a match with Jake the Snake Roberts.
He was very afeared of the snake.
WrestleMania 6, the tag team match against Demolition with King Haku. For the first 6 WrestleManias, Andre the Giant was a staple. And it's a shame that he's almost been forgotten about because there was no better big man in all of wrestling than Andre, and his talents were definitely showcased at WrestleMania.
He participated in only a few WrestleManias, but every WrestleMania he was in is memorable. He is the man who came into his first WrestleMania, WrestleMania 8, as the real world's champion, Ric Flair. That matchup with him and Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, Elizabeth, all kinds of people involved. He would win the championship in that interview.
In the Royal Rumble, he won the championship.
Yes, he could defend the championship, rather, and retain it. Or lose it, actually. And that interview afterwards, what we have right now is a travesty. Heenan and Perfect going wild in the back. Then you go from that to WrestleMania 24, where he would retire in a matchup against the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
Ric Flair, another guy that when he stepped in the squared circle, gave 120%.
Of whatever he had.
I mean, he was an entertainer. He was a showman. He was the guy that could talk the people into the building. And when he had that match against the Macho Man, when he was showing the pictures of him and Elizabeth together before Photoshop became
picture
real
never got
popular.
shown, by the way. You know that.
Well, but they were in the magazine.
From Royal Rumble 92, was it in the magazine, finally?
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember when Rumble 92 started, Heenan's looking around, Monsoon gets upset. What are you looking for? I'm looking for that big old picture of Miss Elizabeth.
And then you go to the emotional match with him and Shawn Michaels, where you wanted Ric Flair to retire because you could tell it was time to go, but you didn't want Ric Flair retired because of how amazing of an entertainer he was. And then he winds up in TNA Wrestling.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Absolutely. But Ric Flair may not be one of the top 10 WrestleMania performers, in my opinion. He's a top 10 wrestler of all time, but WrestleMania is a completely different ballgame, and Ric Flair honorable mention as far as I'm concerned.
And it was obviously Flair and Savage at WrestleMania 8, not
That's what
Bret Hart, as I said.
I corrected you. I think that tiara was a little too tight. Maybe the blood wasn't flowing to your melon.
WrestleMania 19, I believe it was. It was it was Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar. The moonsault felt around the world.
Oh, poor Brock. You know, there was so much intrigue going into that match. The two best pure wrestlers in the company were finally going to have their one-on-one match. And it was a great match. It was very good. Unfortunately, it was almost overshadowed by how good Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho was.
Yeah. Next up is a man who really had one of the defining matchups in all of the WrestleMania events, and that was at WrestleMania 6 in Toronto. Again, it was the Ultimate Warrior, the Intercontinental Champion, versus Hulk Hogan, the WWF Champion at the time. Champion versus champion, the standoff, the matchup that you never thought you would see happened in the Ultimate Warrior. That would be one of his two big moments, I would say, at WrestleMania. The other being his surprise return, his big return at WrestleMania 8, which I still remember erupting in all kinds of markism when that happened, because it was before the internet ruined wrestling.
Leading up to WrestleMania with the Hulkster Hulk Hogan, it was the first time you really saw a double clothesline, and how both guys laid out for forever, and the build-up. I mean, at that time when it was Hogan versus Warrior, there was no hotter babyface than Hulk Hogan, except for the Ultimate Warrior. And when those two guys locked up at the Skydome in Toronto, amazing, absolutely amazing. The electricity in that match, and then of course another great match he had with the Macho King Randy Savage.
Retirement match, WrestleMania 7.
Those two guys. Amazing.
That was when Elizabeth and Savage reunited.
Yes,
remember Elizabeth jumping the rail with her black and white superstar shirt,
and then of
beat
course,
Sherry's tail?
Who can forget, Hogan is going to take some time off, has his match with Sid Justice, and the Warrior runs down to the ring. Everyone thinks it's a different Warrior because he looks so different.
All he did was get a haircut.
Well, and he shrunk. It's like he fell out of the dryer.
Well, it was 92. There was a big trial in 94.
Yes. So very, very interesting. Ultimate Warrior. For the short time he was there, huge star, amazing WrestleMania matches. Oh, but we almost forgot. Ultimate Warrior, Hercules Hernandez. WrestleMania. Oh wait.
Warrior Savage. I'm sorry.
It was Warrior Rick Rude at WrestleMania 4.
Heenan with the foot. The Intercontinental Championship changed hands. Yeah. Man almighty. You know, it's interesting. As we go into WrestleMania in the next few weeks, and we're, of course, going to be there, you know, the last great WrestleMania.
Hogan Rock.
You're judging that on one match?
No, I'm not. If you think about that WrestleMania, you had Ric Flair and Undertaker. Okay? You had Scott Hall and Steve Austin. You had Jericho and Triple H. You had Rock and Hogan. You had DDP and Edge. I mean, it was... Booker T was there. I mean, it was so loaded from top to bottom. And wasn't that on St. Patrick's Day also?
No.
I think it was.
St. Patrick's Day, no.
I think it was on a St. Patrick's Day. You can Wikipedia it later.
We established the fact that I'm not Irish.
No, that's fine. You don't look Irish. But the thing is that may have been one of the better WrestleManias of all time.
Thank you very much for tuning in to this week's edition of PWR 5. We have well, just yesterday I was Be the Booker for TNA Victory Road on pay-per-view, and that pay-per-view, of course, comes to you tomorrow from Impact Wrestling. And we'll have coverage of that all day long at pwrshow.com. So for that one, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for tuning in to the Pro Wrestling Report.
Got it.
5.